Right now, like somewhere in the world, an artificial intelligence just drafted a completely flawless 40-page corporate merger agreement in, what, maybe 3 seconds?
Yeah, 3 seconds tops. It's incredibly fast.
Right. And yet, the human lawyer who asked the AI to write that contract
Hmm.
isn't getting fired tomorrow. In fact, they probably feel, pretty secure in their job. And it's because an algorithm, no matter how incredibly sophisticated it is, just cannot go to jail.
It cannot be disbarred. It can't pay a multi-million-dollar malpractice settlement. And it certainly can't sit in a courtroom, raise its hand, and take the oath to swear it acted in good faith.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because if you step into basically any modern office right now, you can just feel the anxiety. People look at generative AI, they see what it can do, and the whole narrative is that this massive, clean sweep technological revolution is coming for their desk.
Oh, absolutely. The fear of mass technological unemployment is everywhere. People look at their screen, they see an AI generate a whole marketing strategy in 10 seconds, and they immediately assume their livelihood is just, about to evaporate.
Which is exactly why we're taking this deep dive today. We're looking at this foundational piece of research by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover titled, When Capability Meets Consequence, How Business Risk, Not Technology, Dictates AI's Real Labor Market Impact.
And it really is a vital piece of research for the moment we're in.
It totally flips everything. And our mission for you, the listener, is simple. By the end of this deep dive, you will understand why your job security in the AI era actually depends far less on your raw cognitive skills, like your ability to synthesize info or write code, and much, much more on your ability to absorb real-world risk.
To see the big picture here, we really have to fundamentally differentiate between an algorithm's theoretical power and its practical deployment. I mean, what an AI can do in a sterile lab environment is staggering.
Yeah, it looks like magic.
Right, but what a business will actually allow that AI to do in the messy, high-stakes real world, that is a completely different story. That gap between capability and consequence is where the future of human employment actually lives.
So to understand how AI is really going to integrate into the workplace, we have to dismantle this massive misconception. The research calls it the exposure fallacy.
Yes, the exposure fallacy.
Basically, there's this really widespread habit of looking at a job, listing out all the tasks involved, measuring how many of those tasks an AI could technically do, and then just assuming, well, high exposure means instantaneous replacement.
The problem with that logic is that it conflates technical feasibility with commercial viability. For a long time, the dominant theory in economics was this idea of routine-biased technological change.
Right, the idea that machines only do the boring stuff.
Exactly. The theory was that technology, whether it was early desktop computers or robotic arms on an assembly line, would only replace routine, predictable work, things that could be codified into a strict set of rules.
Like tightening bolts on a car door or filing physical paperwork alphabetically. We always assumed that abstract problem-solving and creative writing were the ultimate sanctuary, like the uniquely human domain.
But that old assumption is officially dead.
Completely dead.
Yeah.
Generative AI is explicitly targeting non-routine, highly cognitive work.
We are seeing tasks that used to require years of specialized human training, like drafting technical documentation, writing complex software code, synthesizing massive piles of research being executed by algorithms in moments. But, and this is the key, just because an AI can execute a task does not mean it will be allowed to do so autonomously.
Evaluating AI purely on this idea of exposure makes me think of like a concept car.
Okay, I like that.
Let's say an automaker builds a car with a theoretical top speed of 300 miles per hour in a wind tunnel.
Uh-huh.
If you evaluate the car purely on that number, it sounds totally unstoppable.
Yeah, a complete game changer.
But that metric completely ignores the reality of actually driving. It ignores the potholes, the pedestrians, the unpredictable weather, the local speed limits. Evaluating AI just by what it can do in isolation is like ignoring all the real-world traffic.
What's fascinating here is looking at why those potholes exist in the first place, because it comes down to how current AI is actually built. Researchers like Bender call them stochastic parrots.
Stochastic parrots, right?
Generative AI systems are essentially just massive prediction engines. They have ingested billions of pages of human text, and they are incredibly good at predicting what word or pixel or line of code should logically come next. But they don't actually possess an internal model of reality.
They don't actually understand meaning. They're just incredibly sophisticated at observing patterns.
Yes. They are trapped at the level of observation and association on the ladder of causation. If an AI observes that people open umbrellas when water falls from the sky, it associates the two things. But it doesn't intuitively understand the physics of rain or, the concept of staying dry.
Just matching data points.
Exactly. And because of that, they are mathematically incapable of performing true causal reasoning. They can't ask what-if questions based on physical reality. And economist Darren Acemoglu warns that ignoring this leads to totally unrealistic projections about productivity.
So if they don't understand cause and effect, what actually happens when we unleash them in a corporate environment?
Well, you get severe microfrictions. In a high-stakes environment like medicine or finance, an AI's lack of causal reasoning collides with the absolute inflexibility of human legal accountability. The real world doesn't run on probabilities.
It runs on liabilities.
Precisely.
Which perfectly sets up the next crucial question. Since AI is incredibly capable at generating text but fundamentally lacks this causal reasoning, how does that unevenness actually play out in different professions? The research describes this as the jagged technological frontier.
The jagged frontier is such a useful visual.
Why not?
Imagine a line charting an AI's capabilities. It isn't a smooth, predictable curve going up. In certain domains like translating languages or generating marketing, copy the line spikes incredibly high.
The AI is brilliant there.
It is. But then, right next to that spike, the line just drops into a valley. When faced with novel scenarios or unpredictable edge cases, the AI fails. And it often fails with extreme confidence. It generates plausible, highly articulate, but completely incorrect information.
Hallucinations.
Exactly. And that jagged performance curve creates a dynamic the paper calls cognitive risk asymmetry. For anyone listening who is trying to understand their future job security, this is arguably the most important concept we're discussing today.
Cognitive risk asymmetry. Let's break that down.
It means that purely cognitive work dependent on moving numbers around on a spreadsheet or editing words on a page, is highly exposed. But physically embodied work or liability-intensive work remains completely safe.
So the old rules are totally inverted. Under this new paradigm, a high-paid data scientist analyzing consumer trends actually faces far greater immediate disruption from AI than someone like, say, a roofer or a surgical nurse.
Absolutely, because high-level reasoning, like analyzing a spreadsheet, requires almost zero interaction with the unpredictable physical world. But think about what a roofer does.
Right, they're outside in the elements.
Yes, a roofer has to navigate uneven surfaces, adjust to sudden gusts of wind, handle varying materials, balance their physical weight. Moravec's paradox tells us that what is easy for humans is hard for computers. From a computational standpoint, walking up a set of stairs or swinging a hammer requires an unbelievable amount of dynamic processing. Current AI struggles immensely with unstructured physical domains.
Wait, I have to push back on this for a second. If I'm listening to this and I'm a knowledge worker sitting at a desk, maybe I'm an editor or data scientist, does this mean the smart play is to suddenly pivot and take up manual labor? Like, should I trade my laptop for a hammer to protect my livelihood?
Not at all. It's not about abandoning knowledge work. It's about understanding exactly where the value in that knowledge work now lies. Look at highly regulated industries like healthcare, legal services, financial auditing.
We're being super careful.
Very cautious. Organizations in these fields are adopting AI, but slowly. And it isn't because the AI is technically incapable of analyzing an MRI or spotting a loophole in a tax return. It's because of the liability.
Ah, the concept car hits the legal speed limit.
That's right. The liability rests entirely on human shoulders. If an AI misdiagnoses a patient, the hospital and the attending physician are the ones facing the lawsuit. Therefore, the value of the knowledge worker shifts.
You are no longer being paid solely for your sheer intellectual ability to generate the work.
No, you are being paid to assume the risk for that work.
Okay, this is a massive shift. Because if AI cannot legally or ethically hold liability, then a full-blown occupational extinction, where a job just entirely vanishes overnight, is actually quite rare.
Extremely rare.
Instead, we're moving into a reality where AI encroaches on specific tasks. The human role isn't eliminated. It's forced to rapidly evolve. The research emphasizes that the dominant pattern we are seeing is augmentation, not substitution.
Which brings us to a really fascinating economic concept they discuss, the compliance premium.
The compliance premium. I love this idea.
The hypothesis here is that future wage structures are going to reward human beings heavily for a very specific set of duties. You will be paid for your capacity to absorb institutional risk, to audit what the AI produces, and to navigate ambiguity.
You're basically getting paid for your accountability.
You are.
And there are some really incredible productivity statistics to back up this shift toward augmentation. One major study by Bryn Jolfson looked at customer support agents using AI assistants. On average, the agents saw a productivity gain of about 14%.
Which is solid.
But here is the fascinating part. The brand new novice workers saw a massive 34% gain in productivity. And in another study by Nguyen Zhang, professionals using generative AI completed complex writing tasks 40% faster.
We really have to look closely at why those novices saw such a massive jump. When you give a brand new employee an AI assistant, you are instantly giving them access to the decision frameworks, the templates, and the institutional knowledge of a 10-year veteran.
So the AI essentially raises the floor of competence.
Exactly. It helps the beginner perform like an expert almost immediately. The veterans, meanwhile, see smaller gains because their personal expertise is already bumping up against the AI's capability ceiling.
But even with these massive leaps in productivity, the research points out a massive psychological barrier. It's called algorithm aversion.
Dietvor's work on algorithm aversion is so key here. It's a deeply ingrained human bias. Basically, we are uniquely unforgiving of mistakes made by machines.
Right. Think about getting bad directions.
Perfect example. If a human friend tells you to turn left and you end up in a ditch, you might be annoyed, but you'll probably forgive them. If your GPS tells you to turn left into a ditch, you lose all faith in the entire system immediately.
Right. You never trust the app again.
Exactly. Once we see an AI make a mistake, we distrust it far more than we would distrust a human who made the exact same error.
And in high-stakes domains, that aversion is totally supercharged. That is why we are seeing such a demand for procedural justice. Businesses cannot afford to just let algorithms run wild because the reputational and legal damage of a mistake is, well, it's catastrophic.
Let's look at procedural justice in action. Major financial institutions like Goldman Sachs have been experimenting with AI to screen resumes. But when internal audits showed the AI might be developing hidden biases against certain candidates, they couldn't just leave it alone.
The liability was way too high.
Way too high. So they had to institute strict requirements that any candidate flagged for rejection by the AI must receive a secondary human review. They needed a human in the loop to ensure fairness and to shoulder the institutional risk.
We see the exact same thing in corporate law. Like JP Chase has this AI risk council. If the bank uses an AI platform to extract key clauses from thousands of legal documents, human attorneys are strictly mandated to verify those clauses before any money moves.
Because without that human verification, the institution is flying blind into a hurricane of legal exposure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's look at the daily reality of this for the worker. If my job shifts from actively writing the contract from scratch to just proofreading what the AI wrote so I can, take the legal bullet if it's wrong, doesn't that compliance premium essentially reduce highly skilled human beings to glorified, well-paid rubber stamps?
That is the most dangerous trap in this entire transition. There is a massive psychological impact to perceived replaceability. If workers feel reduced to rubber stamps, sitting at a desk just clicking approve on machine-generated work all day, you trigger an epidemic of de-skilling.
And a total loss of morale.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you never actually do the work yourself, you eventually forget how to spot the mistakes.
Precisely. Think about airline pilots relying too heavily on autopilot. If they never manually fly the plane, their muscle memory degrades. When an emergency happens and they suddenly need to take over, they aren't ready.
That's terrifying.
It is. So optimal hybrid systems, the organizations that will actually succeed in this new era, they have to maintain meaningful human control. Humans have to preserve their skill engagement. They need the ability to challenge or override the AI without penalty, or else they lose the very expertise that allows them to audit the machine in the first place.
So now that we know human value is shifting from raw execution to risk management and oversight, how do the most forward-thinking organizations, and by extension you, the listener, actually prepare for this shift?
Yeah.
Because this clearly isn't just a standard software update.
No, definitely not.
You don't just install AI like a new email client and tell everyone to figure it out. It requires a massive, almost biological adaptation of the entire corporate nervous system.
It requires a fundamental rewiring. The research details how major companies are actively building out blueprints for survival. They aren't just handing out logins. They're implementing transparent capability mapping, systematic reskilling, and distributed intelligence architectures.
Like Deloitte, using a skills inference engine to dynamically map employees' evolving capabilities, rather than relying on static job descriptions.
Yes, or Unilever using AI guilds to distribute experimentation, or Amazon's massive $700 million upskilling 2025 commitment.
Let's walk through a couple of these real-world blueprints in detail, because the mechanisms are incredibly revealing. Let's take Siemens, the massive manufacturing and tech company. The research notes that they have completely redesigned their engineering training programs.
What Siemens recognized is that teaching pure technical engineering isn't enough anymore. The AI can do the complex math. So what do the human engineers actually need to learn? They are now heavily emphasizing human-AI collaboration. And more importantly, they are actively teaching engineers how to make safety-critical overrides.
Let's paint a picture of that. Imagine a Siemens engineer sitting at a terminal designing a load-bearing strut for a new bridge. The AI suggests a specific, highly optimized shape that uses less steel. The AI says, mathematically it's perfect. But the human engineer knows the local climate involves extreme temperature swings that the AI might not have fully accounted for. Siemens is training that engineer not just to blindly accept the math, but to have the confidence and the procedural authority to overrule the machine.
They are actively training for the compliance premium. They're teaching their employees how to wield their accountability. We see a different but equally vital approach over at Microsoft.
What are they doing?
They have developed explicit internal frameworks that map out AI boundaries. They are actively telling their employees what the AI cannot do.
Which seems super counterintuitive for a tech company. Usually they only want to talk about the magical new features.
But transparency is the only way to build durable trust. If you tell an employee an AI is perfect and then it fails, you trigger that algorithm aversion we talked about and they never use it again. By explicitly mapping the boundaries and admitting the limitations up front, Microsoft prevents dangerous over-reliance. They are setting the ground rules for where the human must step in.
Or look at Accenture, rolling out AI fluency training globally for 750,000 employees. So we see these massive companies reshaping their entire workforce. But what does this all mean for the individual listener?
If we connect this to the bigger picture.
Yeah, if you were sitting at your desk tomorrow morning, looking at an AI tool on your screen, how do you actually apply this blueprint to your own career?
The goal for you, the listener, is to aggressively pivot toward what researchers call meta skills.
Meta skills.
Yes. If the AI is going to handle the symbolic manipulation, the coding, the drafting, the data sorting, then you need to cultivate the skills that exist outside of that narrow technical band. Deming talks about the social skills premium. You need complex communication.
Meaning the ability to translate technical limitations to a non-technical client, for example.
Exactly. An AI can draft a flawless project proposal, but it cannot read the room during a tense negotiation to sense what the client is actually anxious about. That requires human emotional intelligence. You need ethical reasoning to navigate the gray areas where the rules aren't clearly codified.
So you have to position yourself not as the person executing the individual tasks, but as the orchestrator. You are the insight synthesizer.
You are the conductor of the orchestra, not the person playing the flute. You are the one evaluating the outputs, integrating the messy business context, and ultimately holding the accountability.
It's an incredible shift in perspective. To synthesize this whole journey we've taken today, the anxiety everyone is feeling about the future of work is real.
Very real.
And it's completely justified. But it's often directed at the wrong target. The true friction slowing down the AI revolution isn't a lack of sheer computing power or processing speed. The friction is business risk. It is legal liability. It is the inflexible constraints of the physical world.
Job security is moving away from purely cognitive complexity, which is now highly exposed to automation, and moving rapidly toward your capacity for compliance and risk absorption. You are protected by the very liabilities that AI cannot shoulder.
The jagged frontier protects us. For now, at least. As long as current AI architectures function as prediction engines without true causal reasoning, human accountability remains the indispensable anchor of the modern economy.
Which is a comforting thought for the present moment, but, it also forces us to look over the horizon.
Which brings us to a final, lingering, provocative thought. Something for you to ponder on your own after we wrap up today. This entire protective compliance premium, this safe harbor we've discussed where humans audit the AI and absorb the risk, it's all built on the fact that current AI lacks true causal reasoning and physical understanding.
Right.
But what happens to human value in a decade if we successfully transition to logical AI?
If AI systems finally achieve robust counterfactual reasoning where they actually can ask what if and truly understand the physical world.
Could an algorithm eventually be granted legal personhood? I mean, if an AI can genuinely navigate liability on its own, does the safe harbor of risk absorption eventually evaporate too? Do we suddenly find ourselves with nowhere left to stand in the knowledge economy?
It's a massive question.
It is a profound, unfolding transition we are all navigating together. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep adapting, and keep diving deep.